Today I'm going to be showing you how to 3D print your custom dice files and turn them into masters and make molds out of them. And I know what you might be thinking, that holy crap, this is a long video, and you're absolutely right, but I have free stuff to give you throughout, so it's worth it. As is the usual on this channel, we're going to learn together, so I'm going to show you the failures that I went through so that you hopefully can avoid those on your end. If you want to just go right to the end, I'll put a timestamp right on the screen right now so you can just see the end products. If you don't actually want to see all the DIY stuff, that's absolutely fine. First, we need a 3D printable file, or an STL file. I'm making these 3D prints out of some dice that I had made by a few friends of mine. Lauren is one who made these custom dice here. She did them so that I could make a challenge for Goobertown Hobbies in a collaboration. So I'm making these now, and he will eventually work on these as a collaboration in the future. I'm using my Elegoo Mars resin 3D printer to print these things out of some Velveeta cheese looking resin. Now, I printed these first ones with no supports right on the bed plate, and anybody who's done 3D prints is going to know that's a bad idea. While that's printing, I set up my ultrasonic cleaner with some isopropyl alcohol, 99%, and a ziploc baggie to put the prints in. You can see they came out looking pretty good. I was very excited by this first prospect. I was thinking that, I don't need supports. I'm too smart for that. Everybody else is wasting their time using supports. Little did I know, I was wrong. So I take them off the build plate with my little scraper, fill the Ziploc baggie up with alcohol, and put it in my ultrasonic cleaner, which essentially just shakes all the excess resin off of there, because you got to do that with this type of resin. You have to use alcohol to clean it because resin's toxic and you don't want any of that excess standing on there. So I scooped the rest of it out, and again, I was like, wow, these are great. I don't need to do all that support stuff, but little did I know I was wrong. The bottom of it has to cure for longer than the rest of it, so it has excess resin that normally wouldn't be there. The bottom layer time cures just way longer, and so small details like other faces of these dice get lost. You can see the snowflake on the one is messed up. Some of the numbers on this big D20 that I tried are messed up, so I said, all right, that didn't work. I learned from that. There's a reason people use support. I'm not smarter than everybody else. I should have known that from the beginning, and I put supports all around these dice, and I said, all right, I'm a beginner at supports, but this seems pretty good. I'm supporting the crap out of these things. So I print my big oof test, since my big mood test didn't work very well. And after those print, I was like, well, they got supports, they're good. And they didn't print at all. They did not print even a little bit. I don't know what happened, but the print failed and no dice came out of what I was doing. The D20 and stuff were fine, but my custom ones that I'm using for this painting challenge did absolutely nothing. So I did what every larger white male such as myself would do, and I overcompensated. I put way too many supports on this, and I tried to make some smaller ones and some at 45-degree angles. Either way, the print actually worked this time, so here's my Chitu box print settings. They worked pretty well, and I'm happy with them. So if you're wanting to copy, this is where you start copying. If you're using resin dice, these work. This was actually a successful print. So I go through the same process that I did before, just sped up so that you can see it again. Using these prints, I have some usable dice. Now, because there's so many extra supports, being the things that hold the dice up while they're being printed, the caveat is that I now have to do a lot of cleanup. I have to cut these with sprues and make sure that I sand them properly. Now, I do all this before I let them sit out in the sun for a few hours to fully cure. You can also do that with a UV light. You can clean up afterwards, but it's just easier to do it beforehand. So I now have these cleaned up sets. But I wanted to get something that was a little bit more photogenic. So the same resin that I used last time when I made my little miniature, this water washable resin, I decided to use that. So I took the resin off my print tray and made an absolutely huge mess, which took me like half an hour to clean up. And I poured this blue resin that is water washable, which I honestly think makes better dice all around. It gives you a little bit crisper and cleaner edges than that regular resin does. Maybe that's just me. Maybe it's a placebo thing, and maybe it's just that I like prettier, clear blue dice. But I wash these off in a bucket in the sink, and then I make sure that the water that is now coated in resin in my bucket sits outside until it evaporates, because pouring it in the grass is a bad deal. I use a metal scraper to get this off, and I know 3D printing pros are going to say don't ever do that, use a plastic one, but hey, all I'm doing is taking off a little bit of paint. I'm not scratching any metal. It works fine for me. You do you. These supports that I made, I printed the exact same set that I did on the yellow ones, except this time I just tried to be brave and pop those bad sprues right off the dice. If you're lucky, it'll happen. You can just kind of twist the dice and they'll all come off. If not, you can take some sprue cutters or hobby shears and just snip right off until you get a relatively flat surface. Then you can move on to sanding. This technique I learned from Dark Moon Laura. I've heard about using a glass pane before to make sure that you have a flat and level surface. It's a great idea. I tried to do it with my surface, but I guess sometimes it's uneven, so a glass pane helps. I'm going to start with 1000 grit sandpaper and I'm going to wet sand. It helps it so that there's not a lot of dust in the air. I'd still would wear a respirator if I were you, but it's just a better health safety thing to do. So wet sanding all around, better to do, and it kind of makes things a little bit quicker. You can start with 1000 grit sanding on this compared to regular dice because 3D printing resin is a lot softer, so you don't need to start at like 600. Starting at 1000 will really get the job done. After maybe about a minute, I had a largely flat surface, but I wanted to get pretty close to completed with the 1000 grit. Then I would move up to something a little softer, maybe 1200 grit. You could probably move up to 2000, and that's what I end up doing later, but 1200 will work for now. So I sand this down to get at least a passable finish on this to see that, all right, this looks pretty good. There's a tiny nick there, but I think that'll go away with the rest of the polishing that I'm going to do, and it does in the end. So let's go ahead and sand all the other sides to 1200. You can see the top layer here is already almost like glass. Since that's the end result, I don't want it to look different than everything else, so I sand every single side. I highly recommend doing that with your masters because you want them all to look the exact same. So you can see that part there is a little too glassy, but the rest of them got sanded down to where they're this kind of matte glass finish. They will eventually be a near mirror polish shine, I swear, by the time we're through with this. So now I'm going to move on to the dice that has letters on it, as well as the one that's got more scenery like snowflakes and mountains and castles. I'll talk more about what that actual challenge is towards the end because I'm sure that the snowflake and the letters don't really make sense, but that's kind of on purpose. We're going to also try another new polishing technique, which I've seen all over the Dice Making Discoveries Facebook group, which is this Zona paper stuff. Supposedly, you can get a near glass-like shine with this, and I was like, all right, well, we'll see. Dark Moon Laura used it too, and maybe they're just better than me, but let's give it a shot. So you can see it's pretty coarse, pretty matte here at the start of things, and let's see how it progresses as we go through these grits. The Zona paper goes from 30 microns all the way down to 1 micron. I don't know if you know, but a micron is pretty freaking tiny. So I started sanding these things. I do about 20 seconds per side each Zona paper that I'm using. So 6 sides per dice. We're doing 3 dice for this challenge. So there's 18 sides that we need to do at 20 seconds each. This is a long process. I then moved down to the next grit and I was like, well, you know what? This is starting to look pretty good. I could maybe believe in this Zona paper stuff, and I moved to the next one and I was like, wow, all right, this is already like glass. This is about what my micro mesh gets me. It can't get better than this. I move on to the next grit and I think the same thing, like, wow, holy crap, it can't get better than this. And then I'm on the final grit and yeah, this stuff is amazing. I highly recommend. Skip the whole micro mesh stuff. Go to Zona papers for dice making. It is just a game changer in the same way that water washable resin is a game changer to me for 3D printing. Look at that stuff. It's so freaking clear. This is how you should make your masters. And then now we should ruin the masters because I'm also going to try Dark Moon Laura's dice mold technique. I like to use the sprues in the corner. She takes a Dremel like this and puts a big old hole in your dice. It is much riskier, but supposedly it can make cleanup a lot easier because you take a toothpick and put it in one face rather than the corner, so you only have one sprue line to clean up and hopefully only one area to sand. So with some confidence and a drill tip that's about the size of your toothpick, drill in just a little bit into the dice so that a toothpick will fit in there snugly. I definitely recommend testing this out on a dice that you don't really care about before committing to doing it on your masters, because I almost cried the first time because I was really afraid I was going to mess the whole thing up. Luckily, it kind of worked out, and then with a little bit more confidence, I was able to do the second and third set of dice to where they've all got holes in them, and now I can snip off some toothpicks and plug them right into the corners. You can see how this is going to leave us with just one sprue on one face of the dice to clean up. After test fitting the toothpicks, we can move on to actually sticking them in there with some ye olde super glue. Now, just a dab will do ya. All you need is a little bit in there and it will stick to the dice. We don't want any excess coming out the side because then that's just more we need to clean up anytime that we're making dice. So hopefully just the toothpick sticks out. Now, I'm showing a video by Craftsman. He tried to cure using prints like I did, and you can see there that silicone is not cured. If you try and cure silicone with SLA-based 3D 3D prints, like what we're using with the Elegoo Mars, it's just not going to work. There's something in the chemical properties that inhibits that from happening. Speaking of inhibit, I found a product online that can hopefully stop that. It's called Inhibit X. Smooth On and the Sorta Clear company sell it on their website, and it is designed to prevent this problem from happening. It will let your platinum-based silicones cure without needing to do anything else. Now, you can just get tin-based silicones, but platinum silicones are just better for dice making. So I wanted to try this product to see if I could really make it work. All you got to do is dunk your print in there, and it will get a really thin layer or film over your print, which is totally fine. It doesn't matter to us. I let them sit on there and I put them in a foam block to dry, and whatever you don't use can just be poured right back in. I do this twice after it dries just because I wanted to be really sure that it would work. Now, I wanted to mimic Dark Moon Laura in every way because her method seems to work and I didn't want to deviate from that. So I got some tiny little red solo cups, which is my method because they are smoother and you can see inside when we use this clear silicone. She also uses air dry clay, which supposedly has no inhibition properties with platinum silicone, but I'll show you that that does not seem to work for me. I take the toothpick and stick it into some air drying clay that is stuck to the bottom of the cup, and now you can see the dice are suspended. Fantastic. Now we can go about our normal dice making method. We can pour silicone around them, and we're going to use Sorta Clear this time because one, it's a product I've never tried, and two, there's a reason that a lot of people like to use it. It makes dice making easier because you can see where you're cutting into the molds and hopefully try and reduce the amount of flashing and sprues that you have to clean up. So we mix this 1:1 by volume for this stuff, so it takes a lot to mix up. I mix it for about 5 minutes, and you can see there's tons of bubbles in there. Normally I'm not able to show that off because I'm using non-transparent silicone, but now I can. So I'm going to use a vacuum chamber to get as many bubbles out of this as I can. Because there's so much silicone, I separate it into 2 cups and pull a vacuum. Now I know you can use a pressure pot, I've done a video on that, but I like using the vacuum chamber and I thought it was going to be the better way to go. But after using the vacuum chamber, I pour the silicone all around the dice and make sure that it goes super slowly so that it has time to get into all the tiny crevices of all the letters and different symbols, because some of them are really tiny, and I wanted to make sure that we had a good opportunity to get a good cast. But you can see there's still some bubbles in there, so even though I did the vacuum chamber, I went ahead and did the pressure pot as well so that I could be 100% sure that that wasn't going to be a problem that caused my dice to fail. I've had too many other failures. We're 3 weeks in. I want this to work, dang it. So I pressure pot the silicone as well as vacuum chamber it, and there we've got a near ice clear set of silicone, which is fantastic. Oh man, I'm so pumped by this. Now I can take these molds off and we can finally get started because we've got ourselves a perfect set of molds. I thought I was wrong. As I said before, whatever is in this air drying clay, which was not in Dark Moon's, but whatever was in mine caused the silicone to cure improperly. You can see here it is very sticky and there's a lot of uncured silicone on the top of my molds, which made me frustrated, to say the very least. I thought about stopping this, but you know what? We don't give up. We're gonna push through. So I take the clay out and I use some Q-tips to get as much of the silicone out of the top as I can, and we're just gonna try casting and see what happens. I take my exacto knife and go down the edge of the dice. Now, I've done this before in videos, but this time, because we have a clear mold, I can cut right along the actual edges of the dice rather than just wherever my knife lands. This way, I can actually cut right along the edge, which is just fantastic. Now I have less to clean up. You can see it makes for kind of a weird opening for the dice, but you know what? That's okay. My dice comes out looking good enough to where I could probably resand this very easily if I had to make another set of masters. So I cut the rest of the dice out, and now I've got my 3 master molds, which is great. We can get on to actually making some resin casts out of these things. I tried to use the red solo cups as kind of cups to hold these in, but that didn't work for me. The ridges on the solo cups caused issues, so I go back to my tried and true, just use some painter's tape and squeeze it onto each other and pinch it on there, and it stays just fine. Now we can get to the resin part, which of course I like to use Art and Glow resin, and as always, as I've been doing throughout this, make sure you wear your respirator and make sure you wear your nitrile gloves for safety, though I don't think you need a respirator for this one, and the safety data sheet will be in the description below. I mix up 1:1 parts volume for this and mix for about 5 minutes. Once it's cured, the first set I tried to make out of this, I used some imitation gold foil. I thought, you know, that'd be cool. I'm going to be sending these to Goobertown Hobbies. I got to show my best work, so let's put some gold foil in there. And I put a lot and I crushed it up, and I thought, all right, we've got the gold, now let's try gold and black. I think gold and black will look great. So I put 2 drops of black alcohol ink in there, and it turned green. Of course it did. Nothing wants to work right the first time in this project, but that's okay. You know what? We're going to persevere yet again, and I'm going to take some pipettes because I still think that's the ideal way to transfer resin from your cup into your molds. You can definitely just pour it in, but the pipettes are easier for me, and I put it in the pressure pot. 40 psi for full 24 hours, the whole demolding time of my resin. Now it's time to take them out, and it looks super duper cool to see your dice inside that kind of clear silicone. If anything, I'm going to use clear silicone just for the cool factor moving forward, but I will talk about some issues with that at another video. You can see the dice look pretty good. They're really black. None of the green really kind of came through, but neither did the gold, and I think I could do better, honestly. The overall dice came out fine. The uncured silicone really only affected where the sprue is, so I think it was fine. It was worth doing a second set of dice because I want Goober to have a nice set of dice for me to send him. So I'm going to do another one with some red, some blue, and some liquid glitter because I feel like I can't make dice without liquid glitter. It's almost like the trademark going forward. So 1 drop of that, 1 drop of the blue alcohol ink, and then 1 drop of the red alcohol ink. And I let them sit there because I was like, wow, that kind of looks like Spider-Man. It's pretty cool. I swirl it 5 times. That's it. Only 5 times with my little popsicle stick. And I really was thinking, man, that looks like Spider-Man now. And I thought that was great. So I'm going to put those into the dice molds and see what sort of colors we get out. I'm banking on it kind of turning into a blue or a purplish blue, and I was kind of right in the end. The red doesn't show up much, but it does show up enough to where it was worth doing. I do like the black and gold set, and I'll probably keep it for myself as a challenge, but look at that blue with the tiny red swirls that almost look black inside there. It's almost like a void, and because there was a weird mix, each of the blue and red dice look completely different from each other, and so with that, I really ended up liking that set a lot, and I'm proud to send that one over to Brent at Goobertown Hobbies. So I cut the sprues off of each of them, and you can see here, those are some good looking dice on either side. I'm actually happy with either, but let's move on to turning these into some full-fledged usable dice. So I'm going to go about my normal sanding process, go from 1000 to 2000 grit, but instead now I'm going to use Zona papers rather than micro mesh to get this final product. It looks so good. It's like freaking glass, and it just shines so well. I'm just happy with these. There's a little bit of white inside of there. That's just extra resin that came off when sanding, and now it's time to ink them. I was debating between gold and silver, and if you know this channel at all, that means I was immediately going to go with gold, and I'm taking gold and filling up every little bit of the insides of these symbols. Now, that's a lot of extra paint. You probably would normally not have to use this amount, but because it's symbols and not numbers that are just kind of smaller, it takes a lot more paint than you're used to. I just wipe off the excess with my finger, and we've got some fully finished, clean looking dice. They are primo. I love the kind of galaxy color because of the glittery sparkles and the blue and the red making it almost this purple. This really is a galaxy set of dice. The gold makes it look more like just general space age than it would galaxy. If you wanted straight galaxy, go with silver. I think the overall usability of these dice is really, really high. You can tell immediately what symbol is on them because the gold really pops from the darker red and blue. Lauren over at T2Can on the Shapeways made these for us, and she just offered to do it, so I'll put a link to her Shapeways as well as where to download these STL files in case you want to do this challenge by yourself. There are some issues with these dice, and that's mostly in my making. I think the rounded corners don't lend well to this specific style of dice recreation. It's really hard to sand those and clean those up. As well, drilling into that one face means you have to sand it down quite a lot, which caused there to be some issues on this W. You can see that edge is not sharp at all. But let's talk about what the actual challenge is. So each of these dice represents something you have to do when painting your mini. One is about the base, one is about the specific colors, and one is about how you have to paint it. You roll all three at once, and then that's what you have to do for creating your mini. For example, this one here is how you determine what base your mini is going to be. The skull means it has to be death themed. Obviously the tree is forest, castle is very city-y, mountain is mountain, the snowflake is for frosty terrain, and the waves means you have to have a water themed one. The letters ones correspond to a color theme. G stands for gold, S stands for silver, R stands for red, P stands for purple, B stands for black, and W stands for white. You have to incorporate that color scheme somehow, and the final dice is how you have to do your painting. The drop means wet blending, the airbrush means airbrush, the brush means only using one brush, the clock is a timed event, the palette means no palette, and the ultimate mean one, the final one, is you have to finger paint your mini. So good luck if you roll that one at any time, and I cannot wait to see people complete that challenge. So gonna send that out to Brent at Goovertown Hobbies, and hopefully in the next few weeks he will post a video of him doing that challenge, and I really hope he gets the finger painting one. I'm also gonna send him some custom minis that Mia worked on from M3DM, one of Grug, and a few that I'm about to show you. I've been also working with another dice designer, Talon Smith. He is amazing, and he has a place called Okami Fabrications where he makes dice, and we were originally making some Rybonator dice that I was gonna sell. I was gonna sell this design, but instead I decided I want to give it away for free. We've talked a lot about it in a few of my other videos about what is legally okay, and mostly copying dice is legally okay, except for a few exceptions. But I wanted to just go ahead and say, you know what, here, we made a 3D printable dice that you can use and sell all you want. I don't care, we made it so that you can use it and not have to worry about someone coming after you or calling you a dick or anything like that. These sets of dice right here, which I'm planning on sanding up and using in a future video, I will make those 3D files available in the description for anybody who wants them. All you gotta do is either print them or go online somewhere and get them printed, and you can start making your own masters and sell them. Just credit us and we'll be more than happy, and you can get on your way to selling your own dice on Etsy or wherever else you want to sell them. I don't care. So if you've stuck around in the video this long, first off, thank you, geez. Second off, I want to finally move forward with something and show you something that I've been working on in a way that I think provides both value to you and me. And it's an announcement that I've been working on for weeks, if not months, and that's that I have started up my own Patreon. And I've never been one who's just said, here, I want to do something, please give me money and we'll call it good. So I wanted to make sure I had rewards that I thought you all would think is valuable. So I want to explain the tiers first of all. So if you want to be a Dice Goblin, which is $3 a month, you get access to the Patreon feed, you get a Dice Goblin role in the Discord server, which by the way, there's a Discord server, and you get some exclusive Patreon content. But not only that, the second tier is being a Dice Wizard. You get everything in the previous tier, as well as a Dice Wizard role, and then a bunch of free STL files, both for a Dice Goblin set of dice that have the Dice Goblin's face on them, our cute little mascot on the D20, the D6, and the D12. It is designed to look like metal dice, so you can fill this in with paint all around. You could even use enamel paint if you wanted, or I guess you could fabricate them in metal if you wanted, but these are for you to play around with, as well as a chibi version of our Dice Goblin little miniature. You get access to him, and a realistic version if chibi is not your thing. If you want to have a realistic Dice Goblin in your D&D game, you get all of those STL files. I printed them out to see what they look like. The little chibi one doesn't need any supports when he prints. He can just print right on your little resin tray. The other Dice Goblin looks fantastic, and I think that they are awesome. Mia at M3DM made those because that was something that everybody had asked for, but it had already been done. But not only that, we've got more. We've got the Dice Dragon tier, which has everything from the previous tiers. You get the Dice Dragon roll in the Discord. I'll also send you 5 Goblin stickers in the mail, your name at the credits of my videos. You'll also get free modules and digital files and 10% off of merch, which is coming. Now, you're thinking, just wow, what a value. But oh wait, there's more. Sorry, I will stop. There is one final tier, which is the DM tier, the Dice Master tier. You get everything from the previous ones, as well as the Dice Master roll in the Discord, and then you get either one health potion or one mana potion, like the ones that I've made mailed to you. Now you get to pick which ones you want. You get the same stickers, you get all the stuff from before, like this potion of healing that we've done, or again, that mana potion. Both of them are fantastic, and I hope that you enjoy them. I will mail them to you after you have been a patron for X amount of time, just to kind of help with the shipping cost of things. This is just something that I feel like I can offer to you as a payback in a physical way for joining and helping support the channel. First off, all of you already support the channel just by watching, so don't feel the need to do this. But if you want to support in a further way, obviously I would appreciate that. I'm trying to maybe eventually get close to doing this full time, and this would just be a step in the right direction. So if the stickers or the STL files or even the potions are something that interests you, maybe consider doing that. We've got merch coming, so those who are on Patreon who want to get discounts on their merch, you're gonna get it. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. We are so close to 100,000 subscribers. It's like right around the corner. So if you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and we'll get there even sooner. So thank you so freaking much. I hope that you have just a fantastic day.